across the Youth Jam Radio Network. This is Q&A. Here is your host, Juliet.
Hello and welcome to Q&A panel on Youth Jam Radio. I am your host, Juliet Walker. Today's topic is euthanasia. And joining us on the panel, our guest is Melinda, who has been in nursing for aged care for the last 11 years. As always, our guests have a freedom to express their opinions and views without prejudice. Youth Jam Radio remains impartial to any of the topics discussed on this show. Good evening, Melinda and Farida. Thank you for joining us on the panel today. My first question for you is, how long have you worked in aged care?
I have worked in aged care now for the past 11 years.
And what makes this job so interesting, aged care?
I was living in a community that was about to build a new facility, a 160-bed facility. I was given an opportunity to do Cert 3 in aged care, and then I was given a job working here as a care worker, and then I proceeded to complete my Cert 4, and then eventually I did my enrolled nursing. So I've been a nurse here for now about 5 years, and altogether 11 years.
So this is a career choice you made to help people who are advancing in age, and obviously it's something you really enjoy, and that's why you've been there for 11 years.
Yes, because it's close to my heart. It's helping the community, and there's nothing more better than looking after the elderly, as they have given so much back to our community. That's why I'm doing this job.
All right. Now, do you think that the government gives enough funding to aged care?
Definitely not. Not enough funding. Things have gone backwards in the last 11 years since I've worked here. Things have not improved. We have no safe working numbers, and when you're trying to work only 2 staff to 31 residents, it becomes very difficult to do your care properly.
Life is like a party when it comes to shopping at Enhance. Make your special day even better with beautiful clutches from $35. Bargain! Need a mask? Well, at Enhance you can get one from as little as $35. Unreal! And we all love a throwback to 1925 with unique special hats from as little as $95. Get these deals and much more at Enhance. Find out more at enhancefashions.com.au. Station sponsor.
So you're saying that because of the lack of government funding, a lot of these residents are suffering because they don't have the care that they deserve.
No, not when you want to use the word personal-centred care. Definitely not enough care given, not enough staff to provide that care. So in the last 5 to 6 years, funding has been cut such at a dramatic rate that everything has been cut back. So something has to change to make life better for the elderly.
And then what are your thoughts on how to improve the lives of people living in palliative care or aged care?
To give them the choices. It's all about a choice now. So providing enough staff to give the choices that they want to make, and giving informed consent about how they want to end the rest of their days comfortably and pain-free.
And so this brings us then to the next subject, which is euthanasia. Is euthanasia a humane way to end the suffering of serious illnesses in the community?
I believe so. I think it's an individual choice, and only they can make that decision, not other outside sources.
Farida, would you like to share your opinion on euthanasia and what you believe about euthanasia and your opinions on that?
Of course, my views are my own, and they are colored by my faith and what I've been brought up to believe. So I think it's on my own. If I were to come across in my own situation a place where I was really struggling with life, in my own case, I would probably, because I understand why it shouldn't for me, so I will not opt for it, and I will live, as much as I can. But then there are spaces where, because of the technology and how it interferes with life. So, for example, if it's a technology that's giving me a heartbeat or breath, and, I don't know on what level that is all, given by outside.
Melinda just told us that aged care and palliative care, it's understaffed. So you would be suffering because you're not getting the right attention that you deserve. And with Melinda, who said that, they're very understaffed, so you would be put in a situation, I suppose, where you did not receive the proper health care that you needed. And you'd be suffering, so to speak. Would you agree with that comment, Melinda?
Somewhat. I mean, the problem is having a quick diagnosis of palliative care and from there acting in the best interest of that individual. But a lot of times you have other people's beliefs and faiths come into it, and it's sometimes not in the best recourse for the patient. A lot of doctors don't want to make people palliative and give them morphine because it might affect their registration. So it is a very thin line between comfort and care or over-prescribing and giving them too much. I mean, if you go into hospital this day, they already do it anyway, and that's legal. So I think it always just depends on the circumstances. If you've got a terminal cancer and you know you're going to be in extreme pain, why do you have to leave the country to end your life when you're ready? Why are you told, oh, well, you must suffer through it, we'll give you pain relief? But some of these pain relievers don't fix the pain, and you're still in constant pain. So why can't you make your own choices? Why are you also then prolonging life by artificial means, and they say to you that that brain is not functioning, but you've decided still to feed them and have heart machines to keep them going? What for? I'm sure if they were awake and conscious, it wouldn't be their choice.
Farida, would you like to answer that question, perhaps, and share your opinion on that?
Because it's somebody's life. So, of course, if they're unconscious, when they were not, it's ideal. Ideal would be that everybody is given a chance before they get into a place where they are sick to that level where they will get unconscious, to have a sort of like a format. Like, for example, for me, when I'm healthy, just ask about me and my opinion. Would I wish euthanasia, or if something like that were to happen, would I want people to intervene and give me as much care as possible, or are they allowed to take action on my behalf when I'm unconscious to either end my life? And I think because the person is unconscious, you can't really say if that would his wish to end his life until, of course, it was a conscious decision done by him or her. Then, of course, people may not have any say and shouldn't have any say.
Introducing the new McCafe coffee, a new blend of 100% Arabica beans, barista made with the same care and craft. It's our smoothest, most delicious coffee yet. McCafe, we're coffee people.
I could be wrong here, I'm not sure. Melinda, you probably are more of an expert on this, but if people are actually, say for instance, if people have cancer, to make them more comfortable, if the family agrees, you can give them morphine. Is that correct?
That's correct. And you can always fill out, as an individual, you fill out an advanced care plan. And in there you write your wishes, what you want.
So as an individual, someone can actually, we'll go to dementia on this one, because I personally have seen a show on SBS a while ago that actually had a gentleman from England who had dementia, who decided to end his own life in Switzerland so that he wouldn't cause his wife any undue stress. So there are, I believe Switzerland allows euthanasia, but Australia doesn't. Is this something that perhaps, in the Northern Territory, the rights of the terminally ill in 1995, it was passed by a vote 15-10, and a year later a repeal was brought before the Northern Territory Parliament in 1966, but was defeated. So it's not like Australia hasn't thought about this. Australia has thought about this euthanasia topic, but as it stands, doctors cannot assist patients with euthanasia because they could face manslaughter charges. Basically, it's a criminal offence to assist with euthanasia.
That's right. But Juliet, they already do that in hospitals anyway with morphine.
But the question now is, euthanasia is illegal in most of the United States. Euthanasia is an individual who does not really want to end their life directly, but by another person who acts to cause the individual's death. So there could be families out there that want to end someone's life, but perhaps not for the right reason. Would I be correct in assuming that too?
Yes, I agree. That's why it's so difficult to make it law.
And what's your opinion on that, Farida?
Intentions matter, because I'm very sure that if a law comes, a lot of loopholes come with them, and people, if they want to use it for their own good, they can start even massacring. Like anything can go really on a very wrong side as well. And unless someone can really control that and ensure that that's not happening, then I feel if Switzerland is doing it, I wonder what's going on there and how it's being. If it's a beautiful country. It's probably not someone like. I just wonder what makes them allow it in one place and not in another place. Of course, if you were to ask me, I would not allow, because it's more faith related for me, unless, of course, people who are fighting this have that sort of a tendency that because they feel that it's against something, but, it's not for any particular faith to come in. They can only do it for their lives. But if it's a law and if it's something that majority wants to have, I'm not the person who's gonna say, okay, don't do it because I don't want it. I would rather go, it's up to your choice. Like if you cannot control it in terms of like someone dies and someone is easily killed in the name of euthanasia, and that if you cannot protect that, then literally that can be really, it can go on the very other side. But if you can control that, I'm not sure why it shouldn't.
So you're saying basically, if it was controlled, then it would be okay. If it was under control.
Yeah, for me, it's all about what's going on in someone else's situation, and I'm not the law. I can't deal with it, but I would like to. I'm not pro for it, and I'm not against it as such. Like I just feel like it's individuals and it's about the people. It's about the funds. It's about the
So you wouldn't consider it like a merciful or a compassionate killing.
If someone is really like suicide, what is it? I don't know why suicide is not euthanasia in a different tone, because the point is the person who does it is not having a great time. He does not have a hope that he will get better or the situation will get better.
Booked your tickets online? Get to your movie faster with Scan and Enter. You can now present your booking confirmation at the ticket checkpoint for express entry. Buy your tickets at hoyts.com.au or download the Hoyts app from the App Store.
I'll take this question to Melinda. Should a doctor be responsible, Melinda, like it has happened in Australia? There have been stories where a doctor has assisted in euthanasia. So should this doctor then be put in jail for...
definitely.
If the person has asked to be put out of their misery, should the doctor then be responsible for having carried out that person's wishes and go to jail for it?
I don't think so, but anybody can be manipulated. So they have to be dead of sound mind, and then they can make their decision. For a dementia patient, they can't make that decision, so it ends up being the family and the doctor. But someone who's in their 50s and has a terminal cancer and they're in terrible pain, why can't they have the choice to end it now? Why do they have to continue to suffer?
Okay, so if a person has the capacity and they legally refuse both artificial nutrition and hydration, for example, given through a tube or through their stomach or whatever, and this person refuses food and drink, and they themselves don't want to has a doctor or a nurse got the right to force feed these people, even though they do not want to eat or drink?
They don't. No, they don't. They don't have the legal right, no.
So that could that be like a form of euthanasia then? I mean, but a person's doing it to themselves. So if someone was really ill in hospital and say they refused all food and drink, as a nurse or a doctor, you could not force that person to have food or drink.
No.
You just have to let them go, right?
Right. In aged care, it happens all the time. I can't force somebody to eat and someone to drink. I can't force it down them. It's up to them.
Okay.
And we don't have tubes. We don't do tubes here. We don't do hydration. We don't do MGPs. We don't force feed people here. No.
But once again, to reiterate on that, to hasten their death, they can be given some sort of palliative care to ease the intensity of their illness, I suppose, and stop the pain.
To make them comfortable, pain-free and comfortable.
All right. Sorry, Farida, you wanted to say something on this?
So, I mean, it's definitely not in terms of like medical terms, but old people at some age, there's a saying in our culture, that old people and young kid are almost like similar. like they have their, they are stubborn. They're not in that process where they are like adults the way we are at this point. And so if, for example, your kid one day just said, I don't want to eat anything, would you as a mother let them go, or would you force feed sometimes as kid? So,
but if a kid's not well, if a child is not well, and I could see the child is suffering, and we've exhausted all avenues of trying to make that child well, and if the body is shutting down and the child has refused food, my opinion would be, well, you'd have to let that child go, I guess. I mean, if it's refusing food, if it's not, and we've exhausted all avenues of helping that child. We've done all that we can from a medical perspective and from a humane perspective. And if the body's shutting down and just can't take the food, I mean, I'd have to let that child go, as much as it would hurt me.
I can understand that, but I mean, that was just my element where you say forcing. Sometimes, it depends on the situation. If the kid is in that space, or if the adult is in that space where they are just being a little, it's a different situation. But what you're saying, it's completely different thing. And
It depends on...
Sorry, Melinda?
It depends on the circumstances. If your
Yes.
child is terminal and the doctors say it's terminal, there's no cure, then why are you just dragging things out and out and out by force feeding them and giving them fluid if they're going to die anyway?
Why do some speakers command attention and light up the room whilst others falter? Find out in an exhilarating commando course for public speakers. Experienced speakers are invited to join us for a 5-week course thanks to our friends at Evolve Events. Pricing starts from $250 with resources, catering and beverages included. There are also scholarships for people on low incomes. Find out more at evolveevents.com.au, station sponsor.
From June 19th, 2019, I believe, voluntary assisted dying was legal in Victoria under the Voluntary Assisted Dying Act of 2017. The Act, I believe, promotes for and regulates access to VAD, defined as the administration of voluntary assisted dying substance, and includes steps reasonable related to administration of a physician-assisted dying, but not voluntary euthanasia. So, and there's some criteria to this as well. There is still very strict regulations, and the person must be over 18 years of age. And it must be he or she must be a citizen or a permanent resident of Australia, but a resident of Victoria to be specific, and that the diagnosed disease is incurable, advanced or progressive and would cause death. So I suppose there is an exemption over here for a Victorian resident, but I think that is the only state that allows it. Have you heard of that, Melinda?
No, I haven't. No.
Okay. But that person also, the health practitioner also has the right to refuse to assist the person. And so that is the right as well. So, but obviously this is in Switzerland. It's something that people can access quite I wouldn't say easily, but it's something you can access in Switzerland with cases of dementia, say, where there's a slow progressive decline in your health. And so do you believe then that we should lobby for euthanasia, or are you totally against lobbying for euthanasia? Do you think it's something that we could see in Australia?
I think eventually. I just don't know if we're ready yet.
You don't believe that we could be ready just yet to... why do you say that? Why do you think we might not be ready to have euthanasia in Australia as a developed country? And, basically Switzerland's a very developed country and it allows euthanasia. So why are we holding back on this issue in Australia?
Well, then do a referendum and get people to vote then.
A vote?
Yeah, referendum and let them vote.
But as it stands today, we actually, so if a family came up to you and said, look, my parents are really suffering here, can you please help my dad or my mum or my sister? You would not be able to take matters into your own hands without criminal
That's right.
repercussions as a nurse. Is that correct?
Yes, right, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Well,
could do it.
Well, with that sort of, I'm going to take it to Farida. And do you have any questions for Melinda at the moment, Farida, regarding this? I mean,
I just, I'm not sure, but I don't completely feel very okay with the fact that euthanasia becomes an easy way out for a lot of people, because it depends, because even, with the suicide, if I will say suicide is, is like there's a law to not kill yourself, then of course a lot of people would still want to, even though they might know this is not the best option, they might still want it because for any number of reasons. And if you start giving people this choice that, okay, if things cannot really, as soon as you feel, because it depends on people. Sometimes their strength is very high to suffer. Sometimes they have very, very weak, strength to go through. And if this becomes like a norm, then I don't know how it would affect everybody, because I might start, I know that at the end, like after 50, I know my situation might become very bad. And somehow this kind of, I'm just saying, I don't know how this goes. But I fear people will start taking euthanasia more often for easier way out, because they might start thinking there's no way, there's nothing good left to live. Or, maybe on other areas, it might affect that as well.
Well, Melinda and Farida, we will come back after a commercial break, and we will then discuss suicide tourism and euthanasia in Switzerland.
A little weekend work goes a long way at Macca's. Share 24 chicken McNuggets with your mate. Just $9.95 every day.
But people are doing this because they're not given any other choice. If they gave them the right tools here and the right expertise here, they wouldn't be going overseas.
That is correct, because right now, as I said before, Switzerland is the only place where you can actually have legalized euthanasia. So, sorry?
And look, I was just going to say, look at Switzerland though. If you're worried about people opening the floodgates for everybody to kill themselves, is that what's happening in Switzerland? Have they got an overabundance of people going over there and killing themselves?
Well, I don't think so. I think it's just people in the 2011 voters were actually had an overwhelming ban to reject assisted suicide, so outlawed the practice for non-residents out of more than 2,789,000 ballots cast. The initiative to ban assisted suicides was rejected by 75% of the voters. So Switzerland is actually very pro-euthanasia. And I think the United Kingdom said it would consider the amendment to the bill that would allow suicide. But I don't know if I like this term, suicide tourism or euthanasia tourism. I think it's. I don't really think it's a very... I don't know, but I'd like your opinions on it. What do you think about that, Farida? I mean, suicide tourism, really?
I don't know, it's not tourism, of course. It's not tourism. No. So if they have an option and they're going and getting that option from anywhere. So, yeah, I don't know about how Switzerland is doing and what exactly made them have that choice and how it's affecting their, social life. Because economy, if you're talking just about in terms of economy, of course that also is in effect. It does affect people to make a lot of decisions and a lot of laws. But I'm also talking about just the social fabric of the society, how it improves it in any sense. Because if it doesn't, it might be just deteriorating it. And how, if we completely always continue on the economic grounds, continue breaking the social fabric, how do we plan to sustain, as a species? If you're thinking in terms of 20,000, 200 years and, more, it's not just about 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. The world probably might go on for, we never know how long. So what's...
just with that, Dr. Nitschke from Perth was actually telling the elderly patients that they could get this drug in Mexico, but to get them from reputable vendors, the Euthanasia kit. The repercussions to Dr. Ninsky has been quite a bit, because he's a very compassionate doctor. Obviously, his patients were on death's doors when he's probably prescribed these drugs to them. So, do you think that there should be some laws put in place, perhaps, for compassion, for a doctor that does this out of compassion, really? Because I don't think any doctor would just prescribe something like this just if there was no cure, if they've exhausted all avenues of probably medical help. Melinda?
Exactly. It's a no-sense question, really, because Dr. Ninsky was trying to help those people that were in desperate need. That's all he was doing. And I just can't understand. Who am I to say to somebody, oh, it's not for me to say whether you want pain relief or not. You just need to suffer all the way through it until the end. I won't help you end your life because you need to suffer. Who are we to say to people? I'm not going to have someone tell me that I need to suffer right down to the end. If I make a decision to end my life earlier, that's my decision. It doesn't interfere or affect anybody else.
Quite right, but when you throw religion into the equation...
That's the problem. It's always religion. It's an individual decision. It has nothing to do with country or religion or anything else.
I'd like to thank our guests for coming on today, which is Melinda and Farida, and hope you tune in again every Thursday at 7 p.m. to Q&A on Jam Radio.